Welcome again to Talking Devils, your leading Manchester United podcast. I'm Harry from Fan Owned United, and you're watching the Won the Lot pod, a weekly Monday evening podcast where we just assess what's happened in the week for United usually. However, obviously no football this week for us, so we're doing a season review. I'm joined as per usual by Peter, lifelong United fan and football author based out in London, and also Stephen, lifelong United fan and also has got a season ticket in the Stand and has done for 25 years. I myself got a season ticket in the Stretford End and have done so rather for the past 10 years. If you are watching live with us on YouTube, please drop us a comment and a question. We always like to have a few of those and give you some responses. Always interesting to hear what you guys have to say. So this week, like I said, we're going to do a season review. Basically go through a few points such as the player of the season, signings of the season, etc. Seem to have lost Peter. Hopefully we'll be able to get him back online in a bit. So there's kind of like 8-9 points we'll go through and kind of in a bit of a quick fire summary. And like I said, it'd be great to get some comments and see what you guys think as well, if you agree with us or if you have your own views and opinions. First and foremost, we're going to cover the player of the season. And Steve, let's go with you first. Who's your player of the season for this year?
I just want to start off by mentioning that we're all wearing dark colours here in mourning after the week that we've just had. The weather here is gloomy in Manchester, which is really nice because all the Blues outside are going to get piss wet through. So excuse the language. I mean, player of the season. Let's start with positives from United. My player of the season is Martinez. He could have played a little bit more. Maybe towards the end of the season if he wasn't injured and potentially after the World Cup, but you're gonna get a lot of people who party after winning trophies and be a little bit rusty after that. So there's a lot of people who he could have tossed up between. In my list was Bruno, Martinez, Casemiro, and Rashford as my main four, but I went for Martinez. I think he has transformed the way that we play. The amount of chances that we concede is a lot less than last season. And he's just given the whole defence a calm and kind of reassured presence in the back four. And without him, we look a hell of a lot different. I know Lindelof's come in and done quite well, but last season with Maguire and Varane, the upgrade now to Martinez and Varane is night and day. So yeah, for those reasons, Martinez is my player of the season.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously had a massive impact into the team. How about yourself, Peter? Who did you go for?
The exact same list as Steve. Like, it's actually nice. It's a nice change after the last few seasons of having like 4 or 5 players that you could pick as player of the season. And as well as that, like having 4 or 5 players that you call your favourite United player. Because obviously in recent seasons, like De Gea's won 4, so it's not great. And Luke Shaw is 2, which is a bit crazy. I was very torn between Martinez and Casemiro. Just like literally what Steve was saying, like he's completely transformed how he play at the back. He's also like saved De Gea on many times. Like our playing out from the back is all down to Martinez. And you really did feel his absence when he didn't play. Especially like Sevilla away, I think we would have won that game if we had Martinez at the back. He just brings such a reassurance, and he's a perfect blend of like super aggressive but super composed. Like, he doesn't really get any yellow cards. He just knows when to pull back, which is a little bit unlike Casemiro. But I'll just give Casemiro the nod. Just around, like, we were in absolute pits, and then he came in and completely transformed us. And you could say, like, Martinez is so important how we play, but like, the drop off from Martinez to Lindelof isn't as big. I don't think anything is in, like, football. Then the drop off from a Casemiro to Scott McTominay, or an upgrade the other way around. But yeah, I just think Casemiro's impact, his, like, leadership, everything about him, like, he has an aura, and he's just kind of like everyone else feels so much better when he plays, so much more comfortable. Like, just bear in mind, like, when Casemiro got the yellow card against Palace away, it was like someone had died. It was like, I can't believe we're going to Arsenal away without Casemiro. Whereas you have him and you do feel confident going into games. Like, we're not going to get overrun. You have someone who knows what they're doing. So for that, I'll just give it to Casemiro. But yeah, just by an absolute inch.
Yeah, absolutely. Another player that's obviously come into the team, had a massive impact. Definitely needed improvement in the midfield, and he's done wonders not only in that area, but as you said, had a great impact on the team. Funnily enough, I've gone with someone different. Just to let everyone know, these answers haven't been discussed beforehand, so it's good that everyone's got their own opinion. I've gone for Marcus Rashford, purely because the amount of goals he scored this season. Without him, I think we really would have struggled on all fronts. I mean, overall he got 30 goals, 17 in the Premier League, 6 in the Europa, 6 in the Carabao, and 1 in the FA Cup. And I mean, some of those goals were so important. The winner against City in the Premier League, scoring away from home against Barcelona. I mean, that was a fantastic goal. Really, really important goals that he scored. And also, just to give him a bit of recognition. I mean, I know this doesn't go far and wide to millions of viewers, but even still, I think I mentioned this a couple of pods ago. I was quite surprised that he wasn't really mentioned in many kind of team of the years, and there were players like Martinelli ahead of him, who hadn't really scored as many goals, which was surprising. But yeah, for me, and just the amount of goals he scored, considering if we didn't have him, who else would have stepped up? And when he wasn't in the team, we really did look like we were struggling for goals. So mine goes to Marcus Rashford. The next one we have is Young Player of the Season. Why don't we start off with you, Peter, this time?
Unlike the last question, I have a strong feeling we'll all be picking the same player here. It's obviously Alejandro Garnacho. Partly because he's been brilliant, but also we haven't played that many of the young lads because Ten Hag not mad for rotation, and I think as well as that, like, I don't think he just puts guys in for the sake of it. I think he plays young lads if they're ready and he actually thinks they're going to contribute to the team. Like, I know, like, Zidane, Iqbal and Mainu started against Reading in the Cup, but like, it's more like, yeah, like, if they're ready to, they can train with them, but it's not at the same level as playing in the first team on a match day. So I think Garnacho, like, I think he surprised everyone as well. Like, he was on the bench. I think he came on last season towards the end of the season in the game, but no one really expected him to do much this season, maybe a game or two in the Europa, and that's kind of where he started. Like, he got the goal against Sociedad away, and kind of just went from there. Think about, like, the Fulham goal, the last game before the World Cup, was enormous for us. Like, it really just went everyone in for the 6 weeks off in great, like, yeah, we can do something this season, whatever, and it kind of built off the back of it. And like, yeah, like, he was, every time he's come on, he's been brilliant. Scored away against Leeds. Like Barcelona, he played well when he came on. He changed the game. City at home, he got the assist for Rashford. Offers something completely different to any of the wide players we have. And I think the best thing about him, like, I think it's just like, I belong here. Like, I should be on this stage. I know I'm 18, but I'm a Man United player. And he doesn't feel the pressure as such. I think he's just like, yeah, like why wouldn't I be here? Like I should be in this position. So yeah, and like even when he got injured, we really did feel it. Like that says a lot when you miss an 18-year-old player. It was like that said. It said so much. So yeah, I think he's undisputedly being our best young player.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Peter said, guessing your choice is going to be same, Steve, unless you got a surprise.
Yes, correct. The confidence he brings onto the pitch, the confidence he exudes is very surprising for an 18-year-old, and he's actually backing it up. You see a lot of young kids with egos, and they're quite inconsistent. Of course, he does bring inconsistency, but he's being used quite sparingly by Ten Hag. So, as Peter referenced earlier, the man management of the youth players from the manager is really impressive this season. He's giving players time when they're ready, not really overplaying people too much. The games in which he started, he seems to not really make as much of an impact as when he comes off the bench. So he's had such a good season that, in my opinion, he's kind of displaced or jumped above Sancho in the pecking order as well. So in first alternate for even if you're bringing off a forward, say if you've got Martial or Weghorst starting and they come off, you're going to bring in Garnacho and then move Rashford up front rather than tweaking things around a different way. So he's making an impact as pretty much the first alternate off the bench almost every game, and we really did miss him when he was injured. So my young player of the season is Garnacho as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All valid points from both of you. And I'm exactly the same. I mean, not to labour what's already been discussed, but the impact he had against City, 1-0 down, and we looked slightly lost for ideas. He came on, started running at them, started changing the flow of the game. Great goal against Fulham in the league. Obviously, everyone was comparing it to the one Ronaldo scored a few years ago in his first stint. And again, hopefully next year he'll be coming on. Starting rather than coming on from the bench more and having more impact from the start of the game. But this year has been great coming on as a sub, as everyone's mentioned, great confidence, and really had the best chance in the FA Cup final, which I thought was going in when he was on the left-hand side, cut in, just tried to curl it in the top corner. I was behind the goal, and I just couldn't tell or didn't know how that one didn't go in. Good things to come for him. Obviously, signed a new contract as well. So he's going to be with us in the near future. And
just the last thing on Garnacho. Actually, he'll be making his Argentina debut this week, so he's in the squad now. Yeah. He's obviously supposed to be in the squad, and then he got injured. And again, like I just think he'll feel completely like he belongs and he deserves to be there. So you just hope he doesn't go the way of Adnan Januzaj, but I think it's different because Januzaj came into a team that was struggling and we just needed some bright spark, whereas Garnacho's playing like displacing like high level international football players. So it's hopefully. Yeah,
absolutely. Another plus for him, and I think we'll just add to his confidence. Right, so the next one that we're going to move on to is the signing of the season. Why don't we go with you again, Steve? Who was your signing of this season?
So I went for Casemiro, transformative signing. As you know, you can almost put the Martinez and Casemiro as joint player of the season and joint signing of the season. Everything that Peter said in his assessment as player of the season is reasons I'd give right now for signing this of the season. I think it transformed the way that we play after the first two games, and which is why I've said it's the signing of the season rather than the player of the season. I think without him, we'd be a lot worse off. So yeah, definitely a great signing to have made. The rumours at the start of the season, was he first choice, and was he high on the list of who we wanted and who we could get? Is he a bit past it? Is he just going to come for a payday? Absolutely not. He's really kind of shown that he has the motivation and drive to win and to carry on succeeding at a club with a new challenge in a new country. He doesn't really speak the language yet, so he's everything he's brought to the team. He's improved upon, and yeah, he's just great. And hopefully he can get a little bit more rests next season if we bolster the midfield a little bit more. So that would be able to really keep him sharp a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll build on that because Casemiro was my signing of the season as well. So just to kind of, finish those points off, all really valid. One thing that really impressed me was, again, his attitude. Like, that's something that we've really struggled with in the past, is players that have had a bad attitude in the dressing room and really struggled with leadership, whereas Casemiro is a born leader. Even if he's not the captain, he's always kind of on the pitch, giving directions, showing how it's done. He's a born winner. I mean, he's won everything under the sun. But yeah, at the same time, he's so humble, which is a great combination, really. And you said, how he came and it wasn't for the money, etc. And how he settled, and he's really taken to the club. I think last week he put out a little tweet and on Insta just saying thank you to us as a fan base, which was quite nice to hear, how we welcomed him and how, Manchester is his home. So just overall, just a really, really nice character and a great football player. And again, there was loads of great positives from him. But one that I remember massively was when De Gea played a pass out from the back, one of many, against Barca at home. And I can't remember who it fell to. I think it might have been Lewandowski. But he came running back from just outside the box and got the ball back. And I mean, that was a guaranteed goal. So things like that was why he was my number one choice when it came to signing. Got a question in from Sunny Sharma. Sunny's a regular on the show. He's saying, "Hi guys, great stuff. Casemiro has made has been brilliant signing, but Eriksen on a free is an understated move and has gelled the midfield." So, what do you think about that, Peter? What do you think about that comment? And then we'll go on to your signing of the season.
Yeah, I don't think, again, we're saying player of the team. I think all our signings.
Sorry, Pete, we can't hear you there at all. Your audio is just gone.
Can you hear me now?
Hello? Sorry. What are you on to that, Steve?
Yeah, I'll answer it. Thanks for the comment, Sonny.
Cheers, mate.
Yeah, Casemiro, obviously great signing, as we both just touched on. Eriksen, again, he really did help bring a lot more control and tempo to the midfield. He's been an upgrade on what we had. And as a free signing, it's, of course, a great signing to have someone who's a free transfer into your first team. I initially thought he was going to be kind of an option if we wanted to give Bruno Fernandes a rest, but he seems to have settled quite well in the kind of 8 role alongside Casemiro. My issue with Eriksen is that he doesn't really have the legs to complete full matches. He often gets subbed at the 60-minute mark. And as well as an unfortunate injury that he had earlier this season after a horror tackle from Andy Carroll, which wasn't even given a booking. He I don't really think he's settled back into the side after coming back from the injury. I thought he was a passenger against City. But yeah, otherwise, he's shown that he's been a great signing across the most of the season before his injury.
Yeah, so I kind of agree on those points, and that's why I kind of haven't included him on any of the kind of points we'll discuss today, because he had a great first half to the season, absolutely, and the way he would, create chances by just little dinks into the ball, finding players, finding runners, and really, really good link-up play. But like you said, Steve, after his injury that he picked up the second half of the season, he seemed to really struggle, and we didn't really see much of that. Sevilla away was a kind of example where we really needed the experienced players to step up. Not just blaming him. Casemiro didn't look great that game, but there weren't really too many highlights from him in the second half of the season. And that's why I've kind of left him out. Got you back, Peter?
I hope so.
Okay,
great.
Loud and clear.
Okay,
loud and clear.
Yeah, sorry, I heard, everything you said about Eriksen there I'd agree with. My thing was more just saying, like, all our signings have been good this season, I think, which again is a change from recent years. So I know Anthony's got some stick, but I think he'll show himself in the next couple of years. I'd go just, full marks around again for Casemiro. And like Steve was saying, it's impossible to separate Casemiro and Martinez just because they have brought very similar 100%. Qualities to the team. But Casemiro, I think Martinez will end up playing for us longer than Casemiro. He's 6 years younger. But Casemiro was the catalyst signing of
100%.
the one who's kind of changed everything. So I'll go Casemiro.
Yeah, and I think just for me, we obviously played a large chunk of the season without Martinez, and we managed to get by. But if we didn't have Casemiro for that amount of time, I don't think we would have been able to. And that's why it just tipped, Casemiro just tipped it over the edge, and just won it by a nudge over Martinez, and that was my reasoning. Let's move to the next one. Most underrated player, because we lost you for a little while, Pete, so we'll move to you first on this one. Who would be your most underrated player this season?
Most underrated, sticking to the midfield, Bruno Fernandes. I think he gets so much stick in general because he's a moany. He's just annoying. We find him annoying at times, but everyone I know who doesn't support United can't stand him. So he doesn't really get any praise. And I think as well, think about when Ten Hag came, people were like, Bruno Fernandes won't suit this system. He's too high risk, high risk, high reward player.
I was one of those.
Yeah, for an Ajax manager, this won't work. And I think the fact that Ten Hag has fully trusted Bruno, basically he's made him his captain. Maguire holds the armband, but Bruno's been the captain and plays all the time. And he's dropped deep. He's played as a 10. He's offered so much. I just think we've kind of just got used to he plays every week. That's a massive plus. Availability. Guy's never injured. Was in a protective boot and then played 3 days later. Nothing had happened to him. So I think there's some of the reasons. And then obviously his stats are still really good. And he's playing a different kind of role. And we touched on it before. He's topped the charts and chance created, all this sort of stuff. So his stats would look even better if he didn't have Weghorst up top.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we've just gotten used to Bruno, and everyone champions on about new signings and so on. But I just think he's been brilliant for us all season, and he's so consistent as well. So I'd go Bruno.
100%. How about yourself, Steve?
Underrated. I'd go for Luke Shaw. He's just been so consistent. If you want a team who are going to be challenging for trophies, and I know we got up there at one point. People were putting us in a title challenge in sentence or two. But I don't really think that was ever really going to happen. But I think you need consistent players and you need reliable players. So Luke Shaw has been a rock for us in a couple of positions. He's obviously clearly a fantastic left back, but when he's had to deputise at centre half, he's come in ahead of both Maguire and Lindelof at times. So he's almost our third choice centre back after his position's a left back. So
yeah.
He's so versatile and he excels in those roles. He's fantastic in the air. He's quick. He's strong. He's powerful. He's great at crossing. And yeah, he's really surprised me. So in terms of his consistency and availability, I think he's got over his injury problems. Touch wood, that doesn't happen. In the next couple of years, but he really has kicked on and been a fantastic part of our team. So far, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him taking the armband a couple of games next season as well. Yeah. He's kind of getting to that point of his career where he's got a lot of experience. I think he's clearly now England's number one left back, as well as United's, and he would be. I don't really see too many people ranting and raving about him, and maybe it's because he's a fullback. And yeah, his stats in terms of assists and everything like that aren't the best. But again, he's servicing Martial and Weghorst up front. So I think next season, if he gets a big man up top or a striker who he can feed into with a little bit more of an attacking flair next season with a few more goals, I think he might contribute a lot more. And potentially get a few more accolades and recognition.
Yeah, 100%. That's a good shout. I mean, he's really stepped up this season. Considering a couple of years ago he was struggling to get into the team, and the massive surprise, from my perspective, is how well he played as centre back with all those attributes you kind of mentioned. Good to have him in the squad, and great to have players like that can play multiple positions. I actually went the same as Peter with Bruno, just on a couple of fronts. One was, he's you hate to play against him, but it's a player that you love to have on your team, like you mentioned, Peter. You want to. He's a player that's always obviously in the referee's ear, always fighting your cause. Again, like you said, always fit, always available, but also, he's got great statistics. He's got 14 goals, 15 assists this year, so 29 goals and assists, and that's come from multiple positions. Sometimes he's played as a 10, sometimes he plays as a deep holding midfield player, and also on the right side of midfield. So again, great versatility, great stats. And I think those stats kind of, again, have gone unnoticed, really. I mean, 29 goals, assists is pretty significant. And also, one thing when you go and watch games, I'm sure you guys both agree, is that he will literally be running like a hound dog till the last minute of the game. Like, he won't leave anything on the pitch. Always leaves 110%. So that's why Bruno is my most underrated player, because again, like in the kind of general media, no one's really picked up on him much. I didn't really expect him to be in the team of the year or those kind of accolades, but no one really mentions how good he is. So that's why I've put him under the most underrated player. Next one is a game of the season. Peter, start with you. What was your game of the season this year?
We've obviously had a lot of good wins this season. I think the City home one really felt like, wow, United are on the cusp of something here under Ten Hag. I was actually at the Barcelona home game myself, which was unbelievable. But I think game of the season, for me, it's pretty unquestionably the Liverpool home game. For a number of reasons. Obviously, beating Liverpool is always brilliant. We hadn't beaten them in 4 years at that point. And then just the backdrop of we lost to Brighton and Brentford. We were bottom of the league. The season was in the bin already. Ten Hag had been put up on that interview with Gary Neville and Carragher in the lead of the whole thing was crazy. It was proper United on the brink of just capitulation as a football club. And then also that game, like he dropped Maguire, he dropped Ronaldo, he went with who he wanted to play. It was the first game that Martinez and Varane started together. The first time you saw like the imprint of what Ten Hag wanted to bring to United. Played really, really well. Like Sancho, it's funny that Sancho has got the first goal of the Ten Hag era, like for the seasons he's had. I know we scored an own goal in the first game, but we're not counting that. And then Rashford, like it was almost like Rashford was like banishing some demons from the previous season, like really just rattled it in. And the way we held out towards the end, like you saw Martinez at the start, like doing like the Yap Stam and like bumping into Salah. There was all those things of like, it really felt like, how did that happen in the space of like, it was 9 days in between the two games. I know Ten Hag brought him out for like that like 13-mile run, so maybe that was the difference. But it really felt like this is the start of our season now. This is the start of Ten Hag era, whereas the first 2 games felt like a continuation of just the misery of the previous season. So yeah, I'd go with that.
Yeah, good stuff. Nice always to beat Liverpool at home. Hasn't happened as much as we would like recently, right? So understand why you've gone with that. How about you, Steve?
I went for a couple. I was kind of tossing and turning between City, obviously being there and being in the in the commotion. Obviously was brilliant, but I went between the Tottenham game at home, because I felt like that was the first time that I really felt like it was a controlled, measured performance. I think everything that we wanted to do came off. I think that everyone played so well in that game. It could have been like, it should have been like a 4 or 5-0 game. And I don't think I would have been surprised if it turned out that kind of outcome. But I just think we absolutely dominated that game from start to finish. And at that point, I don't think Tottenham had started their slide yet. So I think they were kind of hoping to have a good season at that point as well. So from beating them so comprehensively, really was just brilliant from again being there. And the other one that I wanted to point out was the Carabao Cup final against Newcastle. Obviously, it's the first trophy that we've won in 7 years, which is always nice. And I think it was one of those games where we never really looked too uncomfortable. We scored 2 fairly early goals, which was a little bit rare for United this season. And from then, I think we just kind of controlled it. We let them have the ball when we wanted them to have the ball. We kept the ball when we needed to keep the ball, and we won a trophy at the end of it. And you can see the other 2 Newcastle games this season was a 0-0 draw and then a bad loss away. So they clearly have our number a little bit. And in that final, I think the big players just stepped up. I think Casemiro with that header, and then Rashford obviously scoring as he did during that part of the season. He was scoring every game, and it really kind of brought us on and brought us to a massive, massive win.
Yeah, absolutely. All fair points. I mean, we usually stick to one, but I'll let you get away with that one because all of those games had a big impact. And I mean, from a footballing perspective, I think the Liverpool and maybe slightly more the Tottenham games were really big for us, because it kind of showed for the first time in a long time that we had some sort of structure and a way of playing. And I think everyone, like all the pundits, commentators, were really surprised rather by that performance against Tottenham. I myself, I've gone for the City game at home. I was at that game, and I don't know what it was, but everyone was just really, really up for that game, more so than any others I've been to, including the Barca game. I don't know why. Maybe it just felt like for a long time, the fans kind of felt we could get a result against City, and that's why, like, the atmosphere was just crazy. I mean, if we get going and play well against the top teams anyway in the league, it's usually quite good. But something about the City game, even before we got in the ground, walking up like Sir Matt Busby's way and getting in, there was for some reason that extra edge. And then the actual game itself, I mean, how many teams come back against City, right? We were 1-0 down in the second half, not long to go. And I think, as we mentioned before about Garnacho, he came on, really turned things. And yeah, to win the way in which we did, scoring 2 quick goals with not long left was just incredible. It was absolutely, it was great to do that in terms of a performance, but also just being there and being able to be part of the atmosphere was just on a personal front, really, really good, really great experience. I won't forget for a while. Before we move on to the next one, had another little statement from Sonny. I think he was back on the most underrated player. He was saying there's a notable shout for Wan-Bissaka, was virtually out the door and now has the best tackling stats in Europe. So it takes a lot of character to do that. Really good point as well. We kind of did mention him. Again, I think he would be in the mix if we could pick 1 or 2 players. But yeah, that's really good point. And he's up there in regards to, one of the best right backs in the league. I think Trippier obviously is by far the best from last season, but he definitely has improved his game. Maybe just needs to be a little bit better going forward. Right, going on to slightly more of a negative, the biggest disappointment of this season in terms of a player. Peter, let's start with you.
Again, like we said, like a lot of good players. This one was a bit smaller bracket of people to pick from. Like you could say De Gea, but I'm kind of used to that from De Gea in recent seasons. And then the one I went for, like, is just Martial. Really felt like he was finished last year. Obviously went to Sevilla. Seemed like there was no way back. And then he got offered a lifeline at United. And he had a good pre-season and so on. And then literally, like, if we're day before the season starts, he's injured. And we're playing Eriksen as a false 9. And it just kind of went from there. It was just like, obviously we knew, like, Martial wasn't going to be the player that we thought he was going to be at one point, but it was still like, geez, can you give us like 20 starts? Can you just give us something up top, a figurehead, someone for Rashford to play off, someone for Bruno to play off, not having to resort to like Weghorst being our 9 for the season. So like Martial, like he obviously his body has broken down, but part of that I think is also like, you're like, have you been looking after your body throughout your career? Like, is your mentality right? Is your conditioning right? All these things. And just weird stats, like Martial didn't play a single 90 minutes all season in any competition, and his last Premier League start was in January 2021. So yeah, he's the biggest disappointment. And my roommate actually said, he was like, oh, it has to be Donny van de Beek, so we'll give him a small shout out for the Van de Beek one. But because his point was that, like, Van de Beek came, obviously then Ten Hag was there. Everyone thought, well, maybe he might be able to do something under his former Ajax coach, the guy who got the best out of him. But I think with Donny, it was like, well, Bruno starts in his position. He's not really cut out for English football, it seems. And then he did get a dreadful injury. So I think Martial just so much, like a season again, that's kind of epitomized his United career of just false dawn after false dawn. So an unwanted award for Martial.
Yeah, pretty fair to be honest, with his lack of contribution. How about yourself, Steve? What did you go for?
I was thinking Martial. I was also thinking De Gea. I was also thinking Harry Maguire, but I went for Sancho. I was so excited when he joined. I thought he had a very poor season last year, and I thought he's had a very poor season this year as well. For the money, for his talent, he just doesn't perform for United. I don't know what it is. It might be the fact that he's not really feeding anyone. Maybe it's the players that he plays with, or our main style of play is very much kind of play the ball into space and be a little bit more dynamic. And he prefers to play very much give and go, kind of neat, tidy passes, but he's not adapted at all. He finished the season quite well, to be fair, on the right-hand side, but that was in the last 2 games, and it's just, for me, too little too late. If I could see a road back for him, I think it'd be as a sub for Bruno in number 10. I don't think he's got the pace to play on the wing in the Premier League, at least. So I think if he's going to improve, then he's going to have to do a lot of work as a number 10, because if he wants the kind of little spaces where he doesn't really have to run and sprint too much, then I think that's the position he's got to play. And if not, then he's got to go after next season.
Yeah, totally agreed. All valid points. And I think it's just been a bit of a shame, when he has played, just the lack of creativity going forward, lack of creating chances, running past players. He just looks a shadow of a player that he was in Dortmund. I mean, given it is a different league in the Premier League, it's just such a shame as to kind of his performance level now. I kind of was umming and ahhing with the same names, Sancho, Maguire, Martial, but mixing up a bit. I know maybe some people may think it's a bit harsh, but I have gone for De Gea. I know, obviously he's, made some great saves in terms of being a shot stopper, and some people might say has saved us in a few games. But I mean, the reason why I've, put him in the biggest disappointment category is because he hasn't been able to improve on his distribution all season. And that has ultimately cost us games in regards to not only conceding goals, but, scoring goals and the way we play. I mean, I think Ten Hag said himself recently in that Times interview, he was like, I can't say that De Gea will always be my number one. He's like, it's just the way modern football is now. You need to have a goalkeeper that can distribute properly from the back. And a game where I kind of saw it was so relevant was the FA Cup final, because we were just giving the ball away so much. He wasn't good enough to be able to distribute the ball from the back. So we kept on playing long balls, literally straight back to either John Stones, who was having heading practice. No one was competing against him, or they were going straight through to their defense or their keeper. And we were getting, the ball, being pressed and letting them attack straight away. And it was just, it just cost us massively. And there were huge errors he made throughout the season. And they were just the same errors in passing the ball out from the back, which cost us goals. And as a professional football player, you would think it's something that you'd be able to improve on. And it was just because they were so costly. Again, Sevilla away, bad ball to Maguire cost us. And then the other goal, he came running out, completely missed it. And that was a reason why we got knocked out of the Europa League. Massive disappointment. Still hasn't got a new contract. So that kind of leads me to believe we'll try our best efforts anyway to try and get someone new this summer, and he's not in Ten Hag's long-term project. So that was the most disappointing player for me. Biggest surprise is the next one. We'll go with you, Peter. Who is the biggest surprise for you, player-wise?
He's not my pick, but he's definitely in the mix. Sonny's shout for Wan-Bissaka, because Wan-Bissaka was nowhere to be seen in the first half of the season, and I do think there was some personal issues, family issues around that. So but it just felt like Dalot was the first choice, and there was no way back for Wan-Bissaka, and we were just going to try and sell him on. But so hats off to Wan-Bissaka for like he's actually really turned it around to the point now where I don't think we'll sign a right back this summer. I think we'll go with those two again. So give some praise for Wan-Bissaka there. My biggest surprise is Rashford. Just the turnaround from last season. like we all know Rashford had like a lot of talent. Like he's had good seasons for United before, but like last year, like especially post Euros and the penalty miss and the racism that he was like suffering from, and like just all the crap he had to deal with for like trying to feed children, like doing the job that like the Tories wouldn't do, and he was just like getting like slammed all the time, and his form obviously suffered, maybe not as a result, but you know he just had a really really bad year, and the writing kind of felt like it was on the wall. We're like, where do we like? Is he done? Like, is he gonna come back and be what he is? And this season he became like you mentioned, Harry, with like your player of the season. Like he went from like most disappointing to player of the season in 12 months. 30 goals, most since the first guy to hit 30 post Fergie. Really stepped up. Like he always did perform in big games, to be fair to him. Like he scored a lot of big goals for United. But this season he really took on the mantle of, I'm the main guy up top. I'm that guy. Like I'm going to do this. So yeah, like I think it was just surprising. Like he wasn't in the England. Like people were like, "Oh, Rashford made the World Cup squad," and now he'd be, well, if he ever wants to play for England again, which I really don't care if he does, he'd be one of the first names on the team sheet probably. So yeah, just massive turnaround, and that's why I think it's just surprising for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, huge turnaround from last year. I mean, a lot of people thought he was down and out and maybe going to be shipped off elsewhere. So can understand why you've gone for Rashford there. What about yourself, Steve?
I also went for Rashford. I'm pretty much, you've nailed it, Peter. I was very much in the camp of, should we loan him to a top European team if you can, give him to Dortmund. So, see if you can do something like that in the Bundesliga, and he's turned it around so well. So I'm not really going to expand too much on what Peter said. In terms of the biggest surprise of the season elsewhere, I'm gonna say away from players, our home form has just been absolutely brilliant. As a season ticket holder, it's been probably the best season we've had since Fergie at home. 27 wins in all competitions, joint record. I think we conceded 10 goals in the Premier League at home, and or maybe 12. Or I don't know. I don't have the exact stats, but that's the lowest in the Premier League. And it's just an absolute fortress again. Old Trafford, when in the last few years, especially under kind of like Van Gaal, there was at one point 11 games where we didn't score in the first half. And that was the end of the ground that United kicked towards me. So it was like half a season of just absolute misery. And yeah, this year at Old Trafford has been absolutely brilliant. And as match goes, it's so much better for fans to go to United and see us win at home. We'll compound that with kind of our away form is absolutely shocking against the top 10 teams. But yeah, let's just stick with the positives and how well we've done at Old Trafford this season, because it's a fortress once again.
Yeah, good stuff. All valid points. I mean, Old Trafford being a fortress hasn't been like that for a very long time, so I can understand why you highlighted that. I went for Lindelof as a player, just because he's had such a bad reputation over the last few years. I think it's gone to show this year he can actually do a really solid job if he's got a decent centre back next to him. And he's played when he's needed to step up, when Martinez has been out the team and Shaw hasn't played centre back and we've played him on the left. And he's put in a strong performance. Can't really remember him making too many mistakes. Scored that crucial penalty in the FA Cup semi-final. So yeah, I mean, didn't expect Lindelof to have a season like this. And if anything, I thought at the beginning of the season he would have been one that we would be trying to get rid of. So as a short summary, that's why I've gone with Lindelof. Next one is the worst result. I'm guessing we're all going to go for the same, but we'll let you kick off, Steve.
Well, I thought this, so I'm not going to say that one.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I thought I'd let us remember more misery.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so I went for the full tie against Sevilla. I just thought it was an absolute disgrace. Being 2 up with 10 minutes left, and then losing the whole thing 5-2. It's an absolute embarrassment. Whatever happened in that last 10 minutes at Old Trafford, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And then the less said about the reverse fixture, the better. We've mentioned De Gea and Maguire plenty of times since we started this podcast series, and you can say what you want, but those two lads have cost us the Europa League. In my opinion, we would have won that competition, and I don't think it's unrealistic to say that. I think we should have beat Sevilla. We were 2-0 up in 25 minutes or half an hour, and they ended up winning the whole thing because of the lack of competence in our defence. In those moments, we really missed Martinez. Casemiro coming off his bands wasn't quite fit and wasn't quite as sharp as he should have been, and having so many mistakes in such an important game is why we need to be getting rid of those players who made those mistakes. Maybe the positive lining or the silver lining that you can see out of that is that Ten Hag will have seen now that De Gea isn't up to it, and neither's Maguire. So that could have been the kind of catalyst in their United careers, kind of finishing. So yeah, I chose the Sevilla, the whole tie.
Yeah. Makes sense. What about you, Peter?
Yeah, I'm also not going to go with the Liverpool game. It was obviously absolutely
You guys are
horrendous.
surprising me.
It was absolutely horrendous. I was like a lot of obviously lost 6-3 to City. That was more of a 6-1, and it was terrible on the day, but it was also we came third, they came fifth. It didn't have on the day it was awful, but it didn't have a massive impact on the season as a whole, and it kind of felt like a bit of a freak that kind of way. I think the worst for the season, at Sevilla, obviously was dreadful, but going to that second leg with Maguire and De Gea is kind of kind of expecting this now. I think the one for me, because it ties in what the game of the season was on Liverpool at home. The game before it, the Brentford 4-0. Obviously we started poorly, had lost to Brighton, and you're kind of okay, sure there's a bit of a response here, a reaction. Ronaldo went to the starting lineup, and we were 4-0 down at half time. It was just, and De Gea again let one through his hands, passed one to Eriksen on the edge of the box with his back to the rest of the play. It really just showed Jesus, there's Ten Hag has such a job to do here, and that was proper. Alarm bells were ringing. The club was kind of might would have mentioned with Liverpool when the club was on its knees. We were bottom of the table. We had a goal difference of -5, and then that from the springboard of that we bought Casemiro and Antony. But it really felt like United are what is happening at this football club. So that was more of a club wide nadir, whereas the result against Liverpool was we won our next game, we moved on or tried to. It didn't really reflect where we were as a team or as a club. The Liverpool game, where I think the Brentford one really showed you we could not be worse. So and also I don't think I watched the last 20 minutes of that. I was it's a lovely day. I'm not subjecting myself to just being miserable. So I left.
I turned the Liverpool game off at 3-0.
Yeah, I came back from a stag, and we were we'll go watch United Liverpool in the stag's dad owned a pub, half United fans, half Liverpool fans, and sat there 7-0, and wasn't great. But the Brentford one, it was proper. I don't where do we go from here? Is the club just going to collapse? It felt like there was no way back.
Yeah, and obviously Ten Hag, although he'd done great things in Holland, no one really knew too much about him. So, doubts were cast on him straight away, right after that result. I was at the game. Terrible to watch. I was right behind the goal, where the away fans are anyway, where we conceded the 4 goals. It was literally a nightmare. So yeah, can understand why you picked that. But hey, every cloud has a silver lining, right? Because supposedly that's when Casemiro made that, called up his agent and said, "Tell them I'll fix it." So you never know. If we hadn't have played so badly, that wouldn't have, in a weird way, push Casemiro on to come over to us. So every cloud. But I am going to go for the infamous 7-0 away against Liverpool. Just purely from a fan's perspective, again, it's like there's a few games where you have to put on, competitive kind of show. You can't be embarrassed in certain games, and that's against City. And the biggest one is Liverpool. Out of all games that you play every season, Liverpool is the one. All right, fair enough. You're not going to win every single game, but you got to be competitive, and you're not. You can't be embarrassed. And purely and simply, that performance was embarrassing. I know you said, Peter, they were off the pace from us at the time, and it was a bit of a freak, and we were playing well. But I mean, just a feeling that it gives you. Even losing against City away, fair enough. They were really good at that point in time. Scored 6 goals against us, but that Liverpool game, they weren't really in top form. So to beat us that way, and then the response of the players as well, we really lost our heads for the last 40 minutes to go. Like, no one really knew what they were doing. Everyone was all over the place. And like I said, more than anything, it was just super embarrassing to watch. And like I said, that's the one game where you hate to be embarrassed as a fan. So that's why I went for the Liverpool away game. Before we move on, Sonny's put in another little statement. He was saying that as great as Rashford has been, word of caution, he scored 4 Premier League goals before the World Cup and only 4 post-February. Had a purple patch for sure, but need to see more consistency. Yeah, fair enough, fair point. But at the same time, like I said, 30 goals, without him, I don't know where we would have been. Kind of get, the point around not scoring after February. But one thing we've discussed before, I think even you, Steve, mentioned, when you go and watch your games, you really notice how he's struggled over the last couple of months off the ball. And literally, he'll put all his energy into, chasing through balls and trying to get in to score or whatever. But even in the FA Cup final, the last half an hour, he was literally just limping around when he didn't have the ball, just reserving energy. And I think the season has really taken its toll on him. Obviously, going to the World Cup as well in the middle, and had these really dubious injuries towards the end of the season. He was out for one game with a leg injury. Didn't say what part of his leg. And then the weekend after, he had illness. So I think, to be honest, he's covering up something a little bit maybe more ominous, or a larger injury that might need potential operation, knee or ankle. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents on maybe as to why he hasn't been scoring as much towards the end of the year.
I think at the start as well, sorry, Harry, we were a little bit more in disarray at the start of the year. Obviously, you got Ronaldo up front, who is going to take and demand the ball all game. He's not the most creative forward either. I think even Weghorst and Martial are more creative and more team player than Ronaldo. So I think having a lot of focus taken off Rashford early on in the season, but we've all discussed it right now. We don't think that Rashford has been in the past the 30 goal a season player, so he's had to absolutely dig in and give everything just to make the difference in between top 4 and not top 4. So hopefully next season, if if we can get some more squad players in, then a lot more of that burden will be off Rashford, and he might be able to play a lot more freely.
Yeah, 100%. Really good point. Because when we had Ronaldo and he wasn't really performing this season, I mean, last season he did obviously get a few goals. It's kind of like he's a magnet because he's Ronaldo. Like everyone just passes it to him and just expects him to do something. And obviously he just seemed to be so consumed in his own kind of statistics and scoring as many goals as possible for himself and not really making the best decisions for the team. We kind of suffered. So again, another really good point as to why he maybe didn't score as many goals at the beginning of the season, which kind of just goes to show how good those stats are considering.
Yeah, sorry. I was going to say, we made it through an hour without talking about Ronaldo. I thought we were going to do it.
Sorry.
It doesn't feel like Ronaldo. That feels so long ago. Another world.
It doesn't even feel like he played for us this season. Yeah, so strange.
He was just in it's funny that he played for us this season. It just feels so long ago.
I nearly put that as my biggest surprise that Ronaldo left halfway through the season, but
he could have made biggest disappointment Ronaldo, because he could have been like a good role model and mentor to these young guys, but sure, look, it's in the past now, and it's just funny that he just feels weird that he captained us against Villa. That was his last league game for us. Weird that Ten Hag gave him the armband, but had to give Ronaldo a shout out. Won't mention the guy who did the interview with, because for obvious reasons.
Right, so moving on to the last one, like you mentioned, hit the hour mark. So nearly wrapped up. So the last one is the goal of the season. Why don't we go with you, Peter? What was your goal of the season?
When you talk about goal of the season, it's like, do you talk about the quality of the goal? Do you talk about the meaning behind the goal? All those things. But I kind obviously Anthony's goal against Barcelona, the buzz off that. Rashford's one against City, goes to that. But I think goal of the season, quality wise, and it was a huge game. We did lose in the end, but Rashford's goal against Arsenal was unbelievable. And big tough away game. They're top of the league. We know Casemiro, Weghorst up top. He just skipped through Thomas Partey. I think he nutsed him and then just smacked it in from 25 yards past Ramsdale. And it was proper that was the time you're Rashford's the best player in Europe at the moment. He just everything he hits is going in. And he just was playing with so much confidence and so much just belief in himself. And it was great to see, because you'd miss that Rashford. It seemed like he was always playing with such a weight in his shoulders for so long. And obviously had shoulder injury as well. But it just felt like this guy just believed in himself so much again. And I remember Martin Tyler said it on the commentary. That was his first away goal. It was the first away goal of the season. And I think it was his first away goal for a year or so, or maybe even over a year. I just think it was I know we lost, but it was proper Rashford. I'm going to put the team on my back. I'm going to be the one who gets the goal. And I'm leading the team. So I'll go Rashford for that one.
Yeah, 100%. I'll do mine just because I picked exactly the same goal. I think it would have been the club's goal of the season as well if he didn't get player of the season. I think they just wanted to split the accolades because obviously the club gave it to Anthony for his goal against Barca. Good finish. But like you mentioned, I mean, such a good goal. He just powered through the midfield, took on 2, 3, 4 different players and then just smacked it into the corner of the goal. And his finishing improved so much this season, but that was just an amazing goal. Even though, like you said, we lost the game, but it was a great game to watch. It was toing and throwing. We were in the game right till the last minute, and unfortunately, I think we just defended too deep and ended up giving a silly goal away at the end. But same reasons as you. That was my goal of the season. How about you, Steve?
I was thinking of that one, but I went for. I thought maybe this isn't my pick, but I thought potentially Sancho against Liverpool, where he just sat down half the defence. As you say, it was the first proper goal of the season. And it was so surprising. It was just so cool and calm. And I was just thinking, Sancho is here now. it's his season. But obviously, it didn't come to pass, and then he turned into my biggest disappointment, which isn't very nice. But my goal of the season, Peter, you touched on it earlier, is Garnacho's in the last minute against Fulham away. Just because of how big the goal was, it embodied everything that United is. A player, and I know he's not English, but he's come through the academy. We bought him at 16, 17, and he's coming to the first team at 18, showing what a United youth player should be doing. He should be direct. He should be running at players and scoring the last minute to win a game. It's if you're talking about a Man United goal, a typical Man United goal, that's it. And I think it really characterises the difference now in the team versus what we potentially have been in the last few years, in that our character is so much better than it has been. We've got players who are willing to pick the ball up and do something with it rather than passengers and people who want to pass the buck. So I think in terms of an impact and what describes United as a club, I mean, it's quite deep, actually. Getting quite emotional. But yeah, I just think it was a really, really good embodiment of United. And obviously, you mentioned it was the last minute winner in the game before the break for the World Cup. And I just think it couldn't have come from a better person to come off the bench and score that goal.
I think you hit the nail on the head there, like brilliantly put. Just like that is what United is. And just a side point on it, it also stopped Dan James from getting an equaliser against us, on loan, ex-United, on loan from Leeds. And like that, it was an amazing moment. And what a time to get your first league goal. And do you remember in the celebration after, like, he took his top off, whatever, and then Bruno just like kicked him in the arse. Just really weird. But it was great. Like, and then him and Ten Hag had the nice hug after, and it was like, oh, like,
I think it was one of the goals I celebrated the most this season.
Yeah.
I went absolutely mad for both the goals at City at home and then the Sancho goal. But yeah, it's just absolute kind of ecstasy, isn't it? It's euphoria getting a last minute goal as a youth team prospect. You're thinking this is United.
Also slightly undeserved for the second half performance, which made it even better. It was the biggest get out of the jail card ever. I kind of wish I'd mentioned that one myself now.
No, I liked the reasoning behind it. Like you said, got deep into the United roots, as to why it was your pick. Yeah, so good picks all round. But yeah, that's it for us for this week. Hope you guys have enjoyed the season review and listening to all our points. If you are listening back on the audio podcasts, do like and subscribe. And if you are watching again on YouTube, you can leave some comments and we will respond to them. They're always welcome. So again, that's it from us this week on the One The Lot pod. We'll be back next Monday as per usual at 7:00. Thanks again, guys, for joining us, Peter and Steve, and we'll join you next week.